There's two really famous quotations in physics that I really like. I mean, they're very famous, everybody will have heard of them. And the first is this JBS Haldane thing about the universe not only being queerer than we suppose, but queerer than we can suppose. I really like that. But there's also this Albert Einstein thing where he says something along the lines of the incomprehensible thing about the universe is the fact that we can comprehend it. Because in the face of it, they're kind of contradictory, aren't they? You know what I mean? The idea that the universe is queerer than we can possibly imagine, queerer than we can suppose. And then, as I say, Einstein saying it is queer, but what's queer about it is that we can suppose it, we can imagine it, we can understand it. Or at least we seem to be able to so far. Which is a bit odd. I mean, I like the second one, the Albert Einstein one, even though you've said it earlier, but you know what I mean. The incomprehensible thing about the universe is that we can comprehend it. I do like that a lot. Because it seems to me there's two ways of, probably lots of ways, but there's two ways for me of responding to that. That there's this strange oddness about the universe, that it seems to be comprehensible, almost as if there it is laid out, ready for us to understand, ready for us to mature into as an intellectual sapient race, which is a bit odd, sapient species I suppose I should say, which is a bit odd. And one way I suppose of approaching that is to take a kind of theological approach, would be to say, yeah, well, the universe is clearly designed for us then, you know what I mean? All the cosmological constants are set at such a place. In a similar kind of argument, that argument, the cosmological constants are all set and finely tuned for life, and it's so unusual that could possibly happen that there must be a designer. Well, there's probably a kind of intellectual equivalent to that, or an Einsteinian equivalent to that. That the only possible reason why the universe could be comprehensible is if someone made it comprehensible, and designed it in such a way, and designed us in such a way, that when we reach a certain stage in our development, we'd start to understand it, and that's when we start to become one with it. And the feeling of understanding is the feeling of divine union. I mean, I'm not saying I buy that, of course, but that's one possible reading of it. The other, which is probably more likely, is to do with knowledge itself. You know, when we find out about the universe, when we find out about things, you know, what are we really finding out about? And here I suppose I'm reminded of Heisenberg. What a book sometime, I can't remember, 1928, maybe a bit later. Can't remember what it was called now. Quantum physicist Werner Heisenberg, who and it's kind of an example of the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, I think. And he's basically saying in this book that when we describe the universe in terms of laws of physics, we're not really describing the universe at all, really. We're describing our knowledge. That's what we're doing. We're describing what our knowledge is, and describing the relationships between one part of what we know and another part of what we know. So it's, as I say, it's only objective in the sense that it's coherent and consistent. It doesn't necessarily reflect some kind of depersonalized universe outside of all understanding of it, really. It only exists in the understanding of it, and we're describing the understanding of it. I guess that's what I'm saying. The boat going past called the Yorkshire Tyke. I'll just show you that, look. Not nice. That it? Yeah, so we can only understand the universe in the knowing of it. So what's the thing about that? Yeah, that seems more likely to me. Then the universe would be comprehensible because it reflects our comprehension, and reflects the development of our comprehension and the amplification and the complexification of our comprehensions, and of our sensory engagement as well, crucially, because I think it does have a close relationship to sensory engagement. Because I've been trying to think of a more close to home example of it, because I don't know doodly squat about quantum mechanics, you know, all that stuff really. I mean, I'm interested, but I don't really know anything about it. So I'm trying to find a way of relating that to personal experience, even though I know it probably doesn't work. But so I'm thinking about colours, just to see if I can do that. Look, there's this really nice little plant here. I don't know what the fuck it is, because I don't know anything about botany either. But I'm looking at this plant and I'm thinking, oh, that's yellow, that is. That is really yellow. So here's this idea of yellow. that I know, I comprehend on some level, yellow. And there's all this green as well, but I'll stay with the yellow for now. So yellow. But yellow doesn't exist in the world, does it? I mean, yellow is not, there's nothing yellow there. Yellow is my experience of a certain wavelength of light hitting the photoreceptors at the back of my eye, electrochemical signals going for those photoreceptors, up the bundle of axons, that's the optic nerve, to the various visual centres in the brain, being distributed to various parts and processed in various ways. And it's that experience that I call yellow. Not the flower isn't yellow. Yellow is just a word, a name that I give to the experience. But it does fit within all sorts of discourses. I mean, yellow I can put into a spectrum, so I know the colours that are next to it. I know that if I mix the yellow, which is my experience of the plant, with the blue, which is my experience of the sky on a good day, I will get something like this green, which is my experience of trees and leaves and grass. And yellow, I can also relate to other things that's yellow. I can categorise with the colour yellow. I can metaphorize the colour yellow. I can diagnose illness using the colour yellow. Jaundice, for example. You know, I can play out a whole series of discourses which lend themselves to analysis, which are part of analytical discourses, with the starting point of a colour, which, as I say, is ultimately not there in the world at all. It's in my experience of the world. So I think Heisenberg's onto something like that, or at least that's my nuts and bolts version of Heisenberg, and my nuts and bolts version of Einstein, saying that the weird thing about the universe is that we can comprehend it. I can comprehend the rainbow and wavelengths of light and colour mixing and jaundice. I can comprehend those things partly because there's a flower up there that's got a particular coloured petals, I think, and the sky is a certain kind of colour, and these leaves are a certain kind of colour. So God didn't make the flowers and the things, these colours. These are the things that my brain's doing. This is what my comprehension is comprehending. I think, God.